There is a skillet in your kitchen cabinet right now that is worth more than your first car. It is black. It is heavy. And last month, one just like it sold at auction in Indiana for $9,750. You have been frying eggs in a piece of American history, and you did not even know it. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you are watching from. You remember it by the weight. That is the first thing, the weight. Your mother lifted it off the stove with two hands and you could see her wrist bend under it, and you thought, how does she do that every single day? It was the heaviest thing in the kitchen, heavier than the cast iron Dutch oven, heavier than the roasting pan she only brought out at Thanksgiving. That black skillet sat on the back burner like it owned the stove, and everything else in the kitchen just worked around it. The wooden handle of the spatula had a burn mark from leaning against the rim. The pot holder next to it was stained dark from years of grabbing that same handle in the same spot. And the skillet itself was black in a way that nothing else was black. Not painted black, not coated. It was black the way something gets black after 50 years of bacon grease and Sunday mornings in a woman's hands, as that seasoned it without ever using that word, because she did not need a word for something she did every time she cooked. Your mother made everything in that pan: cornbread on Wednesdays, pork chops on Thursdays, fried chicken on Sundays after church, while the whole house filled with smoke and the screen door was propped open and the dog sat in the kitchen doorway waiting for something to fall. She cracked eggs into it at 6 in the morning when the house was still dark, and the sound they made when they hit that iron was the sound of your day starting. A hiss, a sizzle, a pop of grease that sometimes caught her forearm, and she did not flinch. She never flinched. That pan was part of her, the way the stove was part of the kitchen and the kitchen was part of the house. You could not imagine one without the other. And when she handed it to you years later, after she could not lift it anymore, you held it and you felt the weight of every meal she ever made. Your father used it too. Saturday mornings, he cooked breakfast on Saturdays because that was the deal. Your mother got to sleep past 7. Your father stood at the stove in his undershirt and he made bacon and eggs in that same skillet, and he did not cook the way your mother cooked. He turned the heat up too high. The bacon spit grease across the stovetop. The eggs had brown edges. He flipped things with a fork because he could not find the spatula, and the whole kitchen smelled like smoke and burned butter and Saturday. He wiped the skillet out with a paper towel when he was done and set it back on the burner, and that was the extent of his cleaning. Your mother would find it later, shake her head, wipe it down properly, put it back where it belonged, and say nothing, because the skillet could take it. That was the thing. It could take anything your father did to it, and your mother could fix it, and it would be fine by Wednesday. That pan survived everything your family survived. It survived the move from the old house to the new house in 1959 when your father wrapped it in newspaper and put it in a box marked kitchen, and your mother said, "Not that box, give it to me," and she carried it in the front seat of the car like a passenger. It survived your older brother dropping it on the kitchen floor when he was 14 and trying to make himself a steak at midnight. The handle did not break. The floor cracked. The pan was fine. It survived the year your parents almost split up, and the kitchen went quiet for 3 months and nobody cooked anything, and your mother ate at her sister's house and your father ate sandwiches over the sink. The pan just sat on the burner through all of it, waiting. And when things got better, when your mother came back to the kitchen and tied her apron and turned on the stove, the first thing she reached for was that skillet. She did not wash it. She did not season it. She just turned on the heat and cracked 2 eggs, and the sound they made when they hit that iron was the sound of everything being okay again. Nobody knew how old it was. That is the strangest part. Nobody in the family could tell you when that skillet entered the house. Your mother got it from her mother. Her mother might have gotten it from hers. It was already old when your parents got married, already seasoned, already black. It might have been in the family since the 20s, maybe earlier. It was not something anyone purchased from a store and carried home in a shopping bag. It was something that had always been there, like the wallpaper in the hallway or the creak in the third step of the stairs. It came with the family. It was handed down the way recipes were handed down, silently, without ceremony, one woman giving it to the next and saying, "You will need this. Not here is a nice gift. You will need this." If you turn that skillet over right now, you will find something on the bottom. Raised letters in the iron, a cross inside a circle, and underneath it, 2 words, ERIPA. Those words point to a place where a man built something that outlasted everything he ever touched. His name was Matthew Griswold. In 1865, 2 years after Gettysburg, he walked away from a farm in Connecticut and moved to Erie. He started making door hinges in a building everyone called the Butt Factory. Nothing beautiful. Then, in the 1870s, he began pouring iron into molds shaped like skillets. And something happened that nobody expected. The pans were perfect, thinner than anything on the market, lighter, smoother. The iron had a finish like glass because Griswold used a finer sand casting method that nobody else could match. Other foundries literally used Griswold pans as templates for their own molds. You can still find ghost marks on the backs of competing pans where the Griswold logo was barely sanded off. The competition did not try to beat them, they traced them. Then the fire came. 1885, the factory burned to the ground, and Matthew Griswold looked at the ashes and started building again. Bigger! He rebuilt the factory, reorganized the company, and then went to Congress twice. He was elected as a Republican in 1891. His son took over, then his other son, then his grandson, then his other grandson. 5 Griswolds ran that factory over 81 years, 5 generations of one family pouring iron in the same building, in the same city, and every single pan that came out had the same cross and the same 2 words on the bottom, Erie, PA. As if the city itself was part of what made them. There was a woman in that factory named Etta Moses. She worked for Griswold for more than 50 years. Her job was to answer every letter from every housewife in America who had a question about cooking with cast iron. In the 20s, she started writing recipes under the name Aunt Ellen. She was not famous. She was not management. She was the woman who sat at a desk and wrote back to women she had never met and told them how to season a skillet, how to make cornbread, and how to fix a pan that someone had ruined by washing it with soap. 50 years, one woman answering letters, and somewhere in a kitchen in Iowa or Georgia right now, there is a Griswold Dutch oven with a little booklet tucked inside it that says Aunt Ellen's Waterless Cooking. Then the family fell apart. Roger Griswold died suddenly in 1944. His brother Eli took over and immediately started fighting with the rest of the family. Eli wanted to sell. The others did not. Eli won. In 1946, he sold the company to investors from New York and walked away from 81 years of his family's name on a building. The investors ran it into the ground. Aluminum pans from companies with bigger advertising budgets took over the shelves. The magic that had made Griswold iron feel like glass was fading because the people making the decisions no longer cared about iron. They cared about margins. December 1957, the factory at 12th and Raspberry Streets in Erie poured its last pan. 60 workers were told to go home. Men who had spent 20 years pouring iron. Men whose fathers had poured iron in the same building. They walked out into the December cold, and some of them looked back at the building and some of them did not. The building where Matthew Griswold had rebuilt from ashes. The building where Etta Moses had answered letters for 50 years. They locked the doors, sold the equipment, tore it down. 92 years of American manufacturing reduced to a vacant lot in a city that was already losing everything else. The name showed up on a few pans made in Ohio for another decade, but without Erie, PA on the bottom. And anyone who picked one up could feel the difference. The iron was thicker, rougher, heavier. The surface that used to feel like glass now felt like sandpaper. Whatever those men in Erie had known, whatever secret lived in their hands and their sand and their molds, it did not make the trip to Ohio. By 1973, they stopped using the Griswold name altogether. 108 years after Matthew Griswold walked away from a farm in Connecticut, his name disappeared from every pan in America. You can feel the difference today if you hold a Griswold in one hand and a modern cast iron pan in the other. The new one is heavier, thicker. The cooking surface is rough and pebbly because nobody polishes them anymore, because polishing costs money, and the companies that make cast iron today are not making heirlooms. They are making products. A Griswold from 1920 weighs a pound less than a Lodge from 2025, and it cooks better, and it feels better in your hand. If you run your finger across the cooking surface, it is so smooth your fingernail cannot catch on anything. 100 years old, and it is still better than anything you can buy in a store today. That is not nostalgia talking. That is iron talking. The old stuff was just better, and the men who made it are gone, and the building where they made it is gone, and nobody alive knows exactly how they got that surface so smooth. Some things, when they die, they take their secrets with them, but the pan did not disappear. That is the part nobody expected. The company died, the factory is rubble, the family scattered, the workers went home. But the skillet your grandmother handed to your mother who handed it to you is still on your stove, right now. Tonight, it is still there. 100 years old, and it still makes cornbread the way it made cornbread in 1935. The eggs still sizzle the same way. The handle is still too hot to grab without a pot holder. And the bottom still says EREPA in raised letters that your fingertip can trace in the dark. And now people are paying what your father paid for a used car to own one. A Griswold with a spider logo from the 1880s sold for $10,000 at auction. A number 13 skillet went for $6,700. A toy-sized number 1 that fits in the palm of your hand sold for $9,500. People drive hundreds of miles to cast iron auctions in Indiana, and they sit in folding chairs and bid on pans that someone's grandmother fried chicken in, and they take them home and they cook in them. Because a Griswold does not become an antique, it becomes a better pan. Every year of seasoning makes it smoother. Every meal makes it darker. Every hand that grabs the handle wears the iron down 1/1000th of an inch, and the pan just gets better. That is why people pay $9,000, not because it is rare, because it is still the best pan they will ever own. 100 years from now, it will still be the best pan someone owns, and that person will flip it over and run their finger across the bottom and feel the letters EREPA and wonder who made this thing that nothing could destroy. Some of you found yours at an estate sale. You were not looking for it. You were walking past tables of old dishes and ceramic figurines, and somebody's entire life spread out on a folding table in the driveway, and there it was, black, heavy, $3, maybe $5. You picked it up, and you knew the second your hand closed around the handle. You knew it the way a man knows a good tool from a bad one. The balance, the weight, the way the iron felt warm even though it had been sitting in the cold garage all morning. You turned it over, and there it was, the cross, Griswold, Erie, PA. You paid the $5 and you took it home and you cooked in it that night. Steak, you put it on the burner, turned the heat up, let the iron get screaming hot, and you laid a steak in it, and the sound it made filled the whole house. Your wife came into the kitchen and said, "What is that pan?" You said, "It is a Griswold." She said, "What is a Griswold?" And you did not know how to explain it because the answer was too big. It is a pan that someone's mother used to feed her family. It is a pan that a man in Erie, Pennsylvania poured from molten iron in 1920. It is a pan that survived 2 world wars and a depression and the death of everyone who ever cooked in it. And it is $5, and it is perfect, and it is yours now. Your grandmother did not know it was worth anything. She just knew it worked. She knew nothing stuck to it if you treated it right. She knew it heated evenly and held heat longer than anything else in her kitchen. She knew it was too heavy for a woman with bad wrists, but she used it anyway because she was not going to let a skillet win. She called it my iron. Not my Griswold, not my skillet, my iron, as if there was only one, and for her there was. It was the only pan that mattered. Everything else was for show. Everything else could be replaced. But that black iron on the back burner with the cross on the bottom and the 2 words underneath, that one was hers. And the day she gave it to your mother was the day she gave her the kitchen. You have it now. Maybe it is on the stove, maybe it is in the cabinet, maybe it is hanging on a hook next to the one your wife bought from Target that weighs twice as much and sticks no matter how much oil she uses. Take it down, hold it, flip it over, there it is. Griswold, Erie, PA. A man made that iron in a factory he rebuilt from a fire in a city he walked to from a farm in 1865. It passed through more hands than you will ever know, and it landed in yours because someone along the way decided that this one goes to the next one. Every scratch is a meal somebody cooked. Every dark spot is a Sunday somebody spent in a kitchen you will never see. That skillet is the only thing in your house that your great-grandmother touched that you can still touch, and it works after everything. After the fire and the family and the factory and the 100 years of hands, it still works. The company died, the skillet did not. If you have a Griswold, flip it over and tell us what the logo looks like. We can tell you how old it is. And if it came from your grandmother, tell us her name. She deserves to be remembered alongside the pan she kept alive.